Howdy, just wanted to do a quick video. So we've placed a bunch of houses. We haven't updated these white ones, so nothing going on there. They're just to show that it's not going to select them or add them to the list or anything like that. So you can see our list has been added, our list is clear. You can see slowly if everything gets added to the list and taken off the list. It also swaps as it gets down the list. It'll swap everything to the main object over here, so you always know what the main object is that's selected, which means it can have a tab or whatever showing. I don't think I want like a tab showing up for every multi-selected object, so what I'll do is I'll just have the last, so this house over here will be the one with its menu popped up, and all the rest will be selected. So that's working well. I'm still having a little trouble with this dragnet. You can see how it's not rendering. I think it's some sort of camera issue. So any help with that would be good, please. I've done all of this is pretty good though, so we can place houses, turn them around, we can we can whatever, we can clear them. It's easier to do your tilts and 90-degree functions for obvious reasons like gimbal lock. Y will always rotate the center of the building, so it's best to get your rotation done first and then tweak your up or sideways kind of thing. But if you get it all messed up, so let's see, it'll realign, and bam. So for some reason the dragnet's showing on and off, and the end point is at the same height as the start point, so it shouldn't be doing any weird. It's just a cube that's been stretched out and it's a bit flat, and it's got a collider that's set to trigger, so it's got no rigid body. And it's supposed to be on ignore raycast, so it's not casting on itself, which was making it jumping before. So I don't know why it disappears like that. Want some help with that, that'd be good. But I've just done this menu, which is choice, so I think that's pretty cool. Let's zoom out. So I just got to get the controls a bit more smoother or tuned, a bit more free-flowing. The rotation's good, I like that. I've seen ones where it pivots the camera around a point, but I quite like how it turns on the spot. I think if you want to go like that, that's up to you, and it's just as easy. Plus it gives you better control, more freedom. So okay, so you have to press the sideways button at the same time, but I think it's just more free. You're sitting on a street and you turn and it shoves you over here. That's how they usually work, and then it brings you back like that when you turn. You're like, and then you got to move the camera anyway. So it's quite nice to be able to just look down the street or whatever, zoom in. I always put the zoom backwards. Maybe I should change it. Out, like towards you to go away, and in to go in, but I always, because the pitch camera is opposite, down to go in and up, yeah. Anyway, they work. They're nice though, they still work. So these houses you'd be like, I don't like these two. So you'd select them, and next thing you'd hit delete or whatever. So the way it's going to work is when you select everything, the last building will show a pop-up that is like, oh, what do you want to do with these buildings? Like, do you want to move them, edit them, delete them, etc., etc. There also needs to be a pop-up that like shows the stats of the building. I could either do it on a UI on the side, or I could do it so it floats above the building. I think floating above the building would look better in the long run, and it's more like interactive, it's more in the world itself. The funny thing at the moment though is the UI is not hidden. So if you're a first-person player and you're a multiplayer and your friends in the build camera, you'll see the buildings they're clicking and stuff, which I think is kind of funny, quite cool. It's like the gods are doing their work, you know, while you're like just like running around. So it's interesting. I might hide it later, but for now I think it'll be funny just to you can see like what building your mate's working on and stuff. You can see what, yeah. They'll be like, you'll be running around like down here, and they'll be like dragging the net over you, and this like golden like cube will be surrounding you. You'll be like, no, leave me alone. I think it'll be great. Excellent. In the long run, though, probably have to hide the pop-up so it only shows on build camera. Which, if anyone knows how to do that simply, would be great. I'm sure it's just putting it on a separate layer will do the trick, but for now it's just on default layer. And oh, it's actually the casts on ignore raycast though, so I don't know. I think I guess you can set the camera to only see certain layers, so that's one way to do it. Set the first person camera to not see the ignore raycast, or like say the build menu layer or something. I'll add it in, so that's okay. So these are working smoothly as long as there's no errors in the code. The code's smooth, I mean, but before, when I had these houses, it picked them up because they had a highlight pad but not a toggle on them, and caused the script to stall, and I had to go through it and fix it. So I've told the script just not to detect anything that doesn't have a highlightable object basically attached to it. And it's got a list here of everything it selects and deselects, which I tell you, I had to do a loop to do that. So it just adds to the list as it hits everything, but it has to check when it removes it. Otherwise, it'll just remove some random object, and then it won't. You know, you have the wrong stuff on your list. So it's got to check the list, see if it's on there, remove it. If it's not, it's got to delete it on the main object, and then swap something from the list onto the main object, so that the main object's always selected. Hey, ta-da! So, I think it's cool. You see, you got this different icon going on now. So, when you're building it, if you're in God mode, which we are, or creative, right? So if it's got that construction picture. If you build it, it'll instantly go to the picture of the that's in here. So whatever picture's in the folder will also be the highlight picture, which is an interesting way to do it for now. It's simple, so I think it's okay. And it makes everything a bit dynamic. If somebody makes something, it's not going to have the same picture for every house or whatever, and it gives me a place to just, you know, there's already a picture there for the menu. So if we put decent pictures on the menus, then it'll have decent pictures underneath. So that's cool. Kind of two birds with one stone there, I think, works well. And of course you're not going to have it selected like while you're playing. You don't want it selected, you only want it selected while you do something. So it's only so you can see the thing. You might be like, you know, way out here and you're like, have I got it? Did I get it? You know, like, so you got to click it, I think. Okay, so if anyone wants help how to do this drag loop, that's great, but you can see my drag net render wise isn't quite as reliable as I'd like. I mean, the code's working well, and so why it does that, like, I'd like it to just always show. I did set the camera far further to 10,000, another 0, and I don't know how many it needs, whatever. It needs 20 million meters. 20 million meters. So I want to set this camera so I can see really far, because you're basically going to be seeing a lot of the map, and you're going to be zoomed right out sometimes, you know, because that could just be one tiny block. You could be building an entire city that's massive. So I mean, the potential here, but it's definitely first person integrated, because I want you to be able to run around and do dungeons and stuff. But I'm tired of really awesome first person games that you can't build anything ever. You can't, like, even dig a hole in the ground and plant a flower. Like, all these years of programming, and you can't even dig a hole in the ground and, like, do some, like, potatoes or something. What the is going on? Like, a couple games you can, like, run up to the ground and you press a button, and then, like, in 6 months a plant grows. Like, Okay, now I want something a bit more interactive. I want to be able to like dig holes, make tunnels, Minecraft this stuff. You know, Space Engineers this stuff. They've done a really good job, Space Engineers. This is kind of going to be something similar, but less to do with squares and blocks. I think I've had enough of squares and blocks and grids, and something just to that level, but with a really like high quality realism. So we could try putting some houses on some angles, might help. I think function wise, this would be a really good builder. And I mean, it's not only a build camera, there's a whole first person camera and everything going on, so yeah, it's definitely just it's definitely got it. This camera's quite cool because you can grab things with this camera. I don't think I showed this off the other day. So we can take this cube or whatever, take it to our house. As you know, you have to be in creative mode to do this, or God mode. Otherwise you can't possess objects because you're like not a ghost or whatever. To get out of it, we just toggle the camera. I should make it so you can place it down, but you can change the view and everything while you're in it, like rotate around it, move around it. So you can pick up like items like saws and stuff and go up to a tree and chop it in this mode, just for like testing mainly. But I don't want to limit that either. Like people, if they want to put God mode on and run around with just items and do stuff and not have a body, that's okay. Like that's good. They should be able to. So really just get this game, you know, just cranking. I'd like to see some more items soon, but I had to get this dragnet going because I gotta fix that. Whatever happened here was not good. Now that we've moved around, our gyro is supposed to reset, but it hasn't, so that'll be the next thing to do, is to reset the gyro every time the camera's toggled. For some reason it just does it the first time. I probably forgot to tell it to reset. I told it to like latch off, like do it the first time, and then I just kept testing by turning the game off. So I'll just have to tell it to reset. That'll just reset the world level. Oh yes, of course, because when the player moves, it moves where the world level is flashed at and changes that camera. So this camera doesn't reflect. Yeah. So every time I just press the button, I'll just tell it to just update the world position instead of just doing it the one time. So that'll fix that. Need to make the zoom a bit faster because you're going to end up way out. So this has made it horrible, terrible. I think we could try to face the way we started. We'll probably do it. So we come back over here and something like that. Yeah, there we go. So because we put the player back mainly in the same direction, it kind of put the gyro back to the right place, but not very well. Either way, I like it. Just little tweaks. Those things are little. I've done a lot of the work to actually, like, I built all the I built the road. I was going to paint the thing. Just add the signs on the side and stuff. So it's there. It's definitely there. So these houses, they need to have more stuff now. Like they need to know. You need to know what it takes to build the house. Not sure how to do that, because do we start with one object? You know, because if you're in first person, you might build a small object. You're going to build a large object. It's going to have tons of these small objects in it. So should I force you to now need your blueprint? You have to like build 60 other blueprints because it needs those parts for it, or should I tell it to kind of compile everything down, like take a list of like, oh okay, everything needs this much, and kind of replicate. That way, I would like it to be able to do both, to be honest. So if you've got some of those parts, you can chuck them at it, and if you don't, you can just go get like raw resources, and you don't have to like machine all the in-between stuff. But I also do want like a whole factory kind of thing going on, so you should like have a big production line producing things for you, you know, like steel, forged steel and things like that. Excuse me. I hope you enjoyed. This is working well though. Just got to get that dragnet working, rendering properly. So any help with that is good. Thank you. Goodbye.